Okay, I admit it, I cocked up. I have missed out some very tough places to visit, especially in the 70s. So by popular demand, here are my additional grounds that normal people wouldn't visit in the 70s, starting from where we finished the last video. 16. Portsmouth's Fratton Park, 30% chance of surviving unscathed in the 70s. Fratton Park is a horrible place for away fans now, apparently. Never mind in the 70s. My contacts tell me the 6.57 crew are highly respected and no firm has ever taken the home end of Portsmouth, called the Fratton end. The atmosphere at Fratton Park has to be experienced to be believed, and one Jose Mourinho said it was the best atmosphere he has ever experienced as an away manager when his team played there. He said about his visit from Chelsea, "I remember Portsmouth. Such a small stadium, the atmosphere was absolutely incredible. In the 70s, it was an hostile place to visit for away fans who would be attacked along the short route to the ground from the station. Portsmouth spent much of the 70s in Division 2, now the Championship, so their effectiveness against the bigger, tougher firms is the question. I know in cup matches and against top firms that were relegated, they held their own, so no reason to suspect otherwise. Chelsea did take over the place in a Division 2 match in 75, which slightly reduces their position, but anyway, that's my reasoning. 17. Nottingham Forest City Ground, 30% chance of surviving unscathed in the 70s. I don't know how I forgot this place. Very underestimated firm from the 70s in particular. The City Ground was an experience I personally had a few times, and it was always confrontational. The walk from the train station seemed like about 2 miles, and Forest would try to break the police escort to attack you on the route, especially on the way back. Some away fans had another route which took them over the famous Trent Bridge, where many a fan has been thrown into by the Forest boys. Legend has it that Chelsea took the Trent End in 1976, but I am reliably informed by my Forest contacts that this is completely untrue, and Chelsea, along with 3 other clubs, were given the Trent End due to building work on the Forest Stadium. This is always refuted by my Chelsea contacts, who insist they took the Trent. On their forums, someone recollects the day's events. He states, "I think it was the same season when something very similar happened at Forest. The Trent End had a bit of a reputation at the time, but 100 or so cleared it out, and the rest of us who were in the away section on the halfway line jaunted across the pitch to join them. This was quite early, but so many of us were in there that Plod made an executive decision, and all arriving Chelsea were put in there with us. About 8,000 that day, noisily packing the Trent End out, great support, singing the We Are Evil song throughout the match. Must have been great for our players and demoralising for Forest to see such a complete takeover like that. I am siding with my Forest contacts. Chelsea were given the Trent End in my opinion. There was massive trouble all day and especially after the match. You could also get attacked whilst inside the ground. I know Wolves claimed the worst beating they ever took place inside the City Ground in 1977, when their firm was split up by late arrivals. The train firm were put in the big open end behind the goal and Forest simply walked round from their side end and battered the Wolves fans, who had to flee the ground. After the match, Forest were picking off Wolves fans and a complete annihilation ensued. I'm reliably informed that the following season, Wolves got their act together and managed to repel all of Forest attacks. But still the worst beating they ever took is high regard for the City Ground firm, now called the Forest Executive Crew. 18. Stoke's Victoria Ground, 30% chance of surviving unscathed in the 70s. Stoke's Naughty 40 is obviously a massive firm, but in the 70s I don't believe they existed, and for me, Stoke was more well regarded in the 80s and 90s. But even in the 70s, it could be a nightmare place to visit, with supporters being attacked at the infamous graveyard en route to Stoke's train station. I know a few firms who come unstuck here. It could also be dodgy inside the ground, especially in the big open end, the Stoke end I think it was called. Man United claimed to have taken the home end, the Boothen end, early 70s, and Chelsea claimed twice, once in the 70s and once in the 80s. 19. Sheffield United's Bramall Lane, 30% chance of serving unscathed in the 70s. Another underestimated venue for me. First time I ever got chased was here in 1977 when I got targeted by a small Sheffield firm and asked, "What time is it, mate?" I didn't wait for a reply and legged it. My firm were trying to stick together, but there was no police escort, and the Sheffield mob was simply picking us off one by one. I'm not sure how bigger firms got on there, but I know of several who were surprised at Sheffield's ferocity before, during and after games there. The BBC were probably to blame. The Blades business crew, that is. Have you seen them? Would you want to meet up with them? Chelsea claim to have taken the Kop Shoreham Road home end in the 72-73 season. My contact claims a special full of us, about 600, went in the Kop in 72-73 and stayed the entire game, despite being bombarded with steel ball bearings, bricks, lumps of concrete, stones and darts. The police just stood there holding them back and laughing as we were hit with missiles over and again, but then all Northern Coppers were total gits back then. After the match we joined forces with the Chelsea lads who were up the other end and had a ruck with the Sheffield lads on a building site on our way back to the station. The following season we got in their end again and were reinforced by the Chelsea lads in the other end, who charged across the pitch to help us out. Even if Chelsea did take their end, it was hard work, and I've heard from other firms this was never an easy day out. Details: Sheffield Wednesday's Hillsborough, 30% chance of surviving unscathed in the 70s. Another surprising entry, but even Chelsea in their prime taking end 70s couldn't pull of this one. This is what one Chelsea fan says of their attempt at taking the Wednesday home end. 72-73 FA Cup match at Hillsborough. A trainload of us made our way to the ground and tried to get into the Kop. I was one of the first through the turnstiles and eventually about 20 of us made it in. But the Wednesday fans must have heard Chelsea singing outside and turned up in large numbers by the turnstiles. Most of them seemed to be tooled up with large spanners, iron bars and the like, and they steamed straight into the 20 of us, giving us a good hiding. I'm not ashamed to say that we jumped back over the turnstiles to get away, as there was no other way out. We then had a small ruck with the Chelsea lads who hadn't got in, as they were giving it large about us bottling it, and we were asking why they took so fucking long to get in. Pretty obvious really, they saw what was happening to us inside and didn't fancy it. So I'd entered the ground and exited again, fought against some mouthy Chelsea lads, took a kicking from the Wednesday boys before we even got on the Kop terracing, all within about 10 minutes. Revenge was sweet though. After watching the game from the Leppings Lane end, the Chelsea fans mobbed up and stayed together outside, which was pretty unusual back then. As we walked up a hill towards the station, we saw a large mob of Wednesday and steamed into them. I'd still be kicking the shit out them even now, if it hadn't been for some Chelsea fans pulling me away. I've heard of other firms coming unstuck here. Although Man United claimed to have taken the Kop in the 70s, you could be attacked on the walk to and from the station and Coaches Park. A very tidy firm by all accounts. The Owls Crime Squad aren't that well known, unless you happen to come across them, of course. Thank you for watching. I'd appreciate any feedback. I'm thinking of doing one for smaller or lower league clubs where it was surprisingly tough to visit in the 70s, so let me know in the comments if you experienced any. Don't forget to subscribe, as it really helps our channel grow to give you bigger, better content.